The movie starts with a guy playing a horror video game in a mansion. He encounters ghostly girls and a haunting woman and discovers the bodies of 2 other players in a torture chamber. Suddenly, he is pushed off a landing, resulting in a game over. The player, Loomis, calls his friend Hutch to share his experience and invites him to play. Loomis becomes unsettled and hears strange noises. He discovers his roommate and girlfriend murdered. As he screams in terror, a chain wraps around his neck, hanging him. Hutch attends Loomis's funeral and meets Abigail, who takes pictures of him. They have a conversation, and Loomis's sister gives Hutch a bag with Loomis's belongings. Hutch meets his friends at a gaming cafe, and they find an unreleased game called Stay Alive. Despite reservations, they decide to play it together. In the game, they recite a prayer and learn about the George Plantation and Elizabeth Bottery. They customize their avatars and explore the plantation to uncover the truth behind the disappearances of girls. They encounter a deceased child, and Hutch shoots her, receiving a protective rose. The scene shifts to the game in full swing as the players navigate through a cemetery teeming with undead children. Miller finds refuge in a mausoleum, discovering a hidden entrance that leads underground. As he explores the tunnels, previously closed off, he stumbles upon a torture chamber, filled with gore and lifeless bodies. Suddenly, the Countess, Elizabeth Bottery, attacks Miller, stabbing him in the neck. Following this intense experience, the group decides to end the gaming session for the night. They promise to invite Miller to join them in the next session. Alone in his office, Miller senses a presence outside. As he locks the door and prepares to leave, it unlocks on its own. Annoyed and slightly frightened, he investigates, only to be startled by an attack. He screams as something assaults him. The next morning, Hutch arrives at his office, finding it swarming with police. He learns about Miller's murder and is questioned by 2 lead detectives, Thibodeau and King. Hutch shares details about their late-night gaming session and Miller's participation. One of the detectives becomes suspicious when Hutch reveals his proximity to the crime scene. Nonetheless, they provide him with their contact information and release him. Before leaving, Hutch catches a glimpse of Miller's lifeless body. Hutch meets up with his friends, and Phineas opens the game, discovering Miller's character died in the torture chamber, just as in real life, stabbed through the neck with scissors. They find this coincidence eerie, but Phineas is still eager to play the game. Hutch urges Phineas not to, but eventually, they let him play alone. During their gathering, October lights a cigarette, triggering Hutch, who has a fear of fire. October quickly apologizes, and Abigail inquires about Hutch's reaction, but he evades the topic, attributing it to his thing with fire. As Hutch contemplates the game and the uncanny similarity between Miller's death and the game, Abigail considers it a mere coincidence. Swink and the others dismiss Hutch's concerns as paranoia. Meanwhile, Phineas continues playing alone and catches a glimpse of the Countess's carriage in a mirror. The mirror cracks, as the Countess dislikes mirrors, but Phineas remains unharmed. He informs Hutch about what he saw and shares his perspective, acknowledging that Hutch has experienced significant loss but cautioning him against alarming everyone. Afterward, the friends disperse to engage in various activities. Phineas works on his car, Hutch shaves at home, Swink uses his computer, and October cleans the machines at the cafe. Strange incidents begin to occur. Phineas narrowly avoids being hit by a truck after hearing an eerie sound, and Hutch witnesses his eyes rolling back in the mirror, causing it to crack. October catches a reflection of an undead girl in a reflective machine, while Swink remains oblivious to his keyboard appearing to spill blood, which he unwittingly smears on his face. He panics but finds nothing there, prompting him to research perceptive reality online. Meanwhile, Hutch sneaks into the office and retrieves the police reports on his friend's murders, unaware of a deceased girl walking down the aisle nearby. Hutch gathers his friends at the cafe and presents the reports, expressing his belief that the deaths of Loomis, Rex, Sarah, and Miller in real life aligning with their in-game character deaths is too much of a coincidence. October shares the history of the George Plantation and the story of Elizabeth Bottery, explaining that the game's details are based on her life. She reveals Bathory's gruesome methods of killing victims with shears in the cemetery and torture chamber, often hunting them down in a black carriage. Hutch's focus remains on uncovering how Loomis and Miller died, to which October adds that when Bottery was apprehended, her last words indicated a desire for revenge. The concern arises for Phineas, who has gone missing. As the weather turns gloomy, Phineas nearly collides with a figure in the middle of the road, causing his car to crash into a tree. However, upon investigation, there is no trace of the figure. The group contacts Phineas, and he discloses his location. Phineas discusses the perceptive reality phenomenon with Swink, sharing his experiences of hearing and seeing strange things. October reassures him, explaining that he did not die in the game. While Phineas waits, he hears the sound of horse hooves, and soon after, he is fatally struck by a black carriage. October and the others arrive too late, witnessing Phineas's lifeless body. Later, Swink and Hutch open the game and confirm that Phineas died in the exact same manner as his character in the game, having paused during the encounter. When the detectives arrive, Punch attempts to tell them about the game, but Thibodeau pulls Hutch aside for a conversation, suspecting a connection between the deaths and Hutch. Meanwhile, King plays the game, and Hutch tries to stop him, but King's character meets its demise. October, devastated by her brother's death, blames Hutch for introducing the game into their lives, insisting that they gather more information about the game and the person responsible for her brother's murder. As King heads to a video game store, he discovers that Stay Alive is an underground game and informs Thibodeau. However, he is attacked and killed by an undead girl while getting into his car. Meanwhile, Hutch and Abigail visit Loomis's house, where Hutch finally confides in Abigail about the tragic fire that killed his family. They break into Loomis's room and find the address of the game developers, which they relay to Swink over the phone. October provides additional information she found in a book, revealing that they need to drive 3 nails into Elizabeth Bathory's body and set her blood on fire. As they discuss their next move, a news report reveals King's murder, leading the police to surround Hutch's apartment. Swink and October gather their belongings and discreetly exit through the fire exit. They meet up with the others, and October steps outside for a smoke. Abigail discovers that the game is playing by itself and sees October's character on the screen. They search for her, and the real October spots a ghost girl inside an under-construction house. Armed with a nail gun, she investigates but fails to kill Bathory, who is now a ghost. By the time her friends find her, October has already been murdered. With their numbers dwindling, the remaining friends head to the game developer's location. Swink remains in the van to play the game and distract the Countess, while Hutch and Abigail investigate. Upon entering the gates, Hutch realizes they are at the real George plantation. Abigail enters the house and recognizes the identical design to the game. She discovers clippings about Bathory, her silver shears, and the Countess's diary containing the names of the victims. As the Countess finds Abigail, Hutch rushes to her aid upon hearing her screams. Swink helps by unlocking doors in the game, and when they find Abigail's character, Hutch throws roses at the Countess, saving her. Hutch finally reaches Abigail in reality, and they share a kiss. Meanwhile, Swink is locked out of the van as the game is about to run over his character with the carriage. Swink manages to save his character and breaks into the locked van to save himself. However, the Countess arrives to kill Swink in real life, even though his character is still alive. Swink decides to flee but falls into a bush of roses. Hutch and Abigail return to the van, finding Swink's character dead. They take the laptop and some wild roses, dropping them to repel the undead children as they make their way towards the tower. Along the way, they become separated, and Hutch performs the ritual on Bathory's body alone. The Phantom attacks Abigail at the top of the tower, but Hutch discovers Bathory's preserved body and hammers 3 nails into it, causing the spirit to vanish. Bathory's body reanimates, but Hutch uses the reflective laptop screen to repel her before setting the room ablaze. Swink, still alive due to the rose bush, bursts in with Abigail, and they rescue Hutch as Bathory's body burns. The 3 leave the tower. In the gaming store, copies of Stay Alive are now being sold. Intrigued, a worker inserts a copy into a PlayStation 2, and as the game's intro begins, the group recites Elizabeth Bathory's prayer. The game zooms in on Bathory staring out of her window, bringing the movie to an end.